People have cut up Crossfire Hurricane in a lot of different ways and used a lot of different analogies to try to explain this. The first one being the name of the operation itself, Crossfire Hurricane, which is more of a combination of a weather storm and a shooting gallery.
Jumpin' Jack Flash was running through my mind. And one of the lyrics, Mick Jagger kind of swaggering and saying, "I was born in a crossfire hurricane."
You can't look at it in the form of a chess game in the sense that the spy business is a chess game, espionage is a chess game. You don't reveal all your future moves to your opponent. You wait to watch what your opponent is going to do, to see if your opponent takes the lures that you offer them, that you're trying to entrap them, and so forth. Peter Strzok's father, senior, was a longtime CIA employee all over Africa, all over the Middle East, helped engineer overthrows in the Middle East. Peter Strzok was living in Tehran, going to Tehran High School during the overthrow of the Shah. He grew up speaking Farsi, and he has been intimately connected with things that were critical, most significantly the Iran nuclear deal. That was a $150 billion payday on day one. And what people forget is there was two more $150 billion paydays that were scheduled in the deal that Trump canceled. Okay, so there's your motive. And the means of this was Crossfire Hurricane.
July 21st, 2016, summer before the election. Trump is a disaster. And then 1 week later, you open that Crossfire Hurricane investigation. I mean, it just looks like you saw a way to stop Donald Trump from becoming president of the United States.
We've been painted this picture that they're lovers and they just hate Trump. And these two rogue agents decided to run a Crossfire Hurricane with long-term CIA and FBI informants.
An understanding that we needed to do a broader counterintelligence look. And Director Mueller, speaking with him, speaking with his senior team, as well as back at the FBI with Acting Director McCabe, we all had agreed that the FBI personnel on his team that I was leading, that we would do that counterintelligence look, which would include that into the president. Now, that's a really, really difficult thing to do. And I was struggling up until the day I left to try and figure out how to do it. Because if you think about it, that's a massive undertaking.
No, it didn't start because Trump said, Russia, if you're out there, publish Hillary's emails.
I mean, look, I recruited people to work for the United States for over 20 years. I worked against those who were trying to recruit those within the U.S. And there are a ton of motivations. I mean, the big categories are those of money, ideology, coercion, or ego.
Strzok identified 4 suspects in the Trump campaign: Papadopoulos, Carter Page, Paul Manafort, and Michael Flynn.
We now know that Brennan had a task force to investigate Trump long before, into 2015, and basically it was just a change in the guard. Brennan was just getting over the operatives and intelligence that he had compiled over to Strzok to continue on. The CIA informants just melded into the FBI informants into one document, the Trump dossier.
Okay, we're live, folks, and I'm here with George Webb, investigative journalist. This is Addy Ads. This is high noon. We're actually at noon 30 today, folks. It is Wednesday, the 11th of November. It's Veterans Day, and we were going to talk veterans today. You just saw in the intro, as people were waiting, I just decided to play the great piece that Peter Duke made, a videographer and creative director, when we were all down in Maryland towards the end of this summer. And I just wanted to play that while people were waiting for us to go live, and give a huge shout out to Peter Duke on that great piece. Just George talking about Peter Strzok and his father and the Crossfire Hurricane investigation. I want to say thank you to a few folks for the tips that we've gotten. We've actually gotten multiple tips from people around the country, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, as well as here in Michigan. Two tips. One of them was a gentleman, which I will get into, who I'm gonna try to reach out to him via this broadcast because he actually didn't leave his phone number, sir. So I'm gonna try to get in touch with you. But I'm gonna pass it off to George and welcome him from Mexico. ¿Qué pasa, Jorge? ¿Cómo estás?
Bien y bien. ¿Y tú? I assume you're good up there. One of the central thesis, I guess, or theories of the last 4 years has been the people who were going to benefit most by the Iran nuclear deal. We're not talking about just $150 billion in the first installment, but we're talking about 2 more installments of $150 billion. Now, so the central thesis was the same people who used encrypted communications, State Department encrypted communications, also use that private enclave capability, that State Department ability to hide everything you're doing, to also do other takedowns of countries, overthrows of countries. And again, not too many people. Some people have been fishing. Some people have been windsurfing. Some people have done other things. Not too many people have overthrown countries with the CIA. So when you're looking for a list of people who would use this State Department capability to negotiate a new Iran deal, to grab, to teneo means to grab or to grasp or to take other countries, the amount of countries is the amount of people that fit that qualification is very few. And that's what we're talking about, is the people who had that encrypted capability. Remember, it's encrypted from all the militaries in the world, State Department communications, Russia to the United States, Russia to China, all the Hunter Biden type capability in those encrypted Blackberries. That also would enable you to do Libya, Syria, Sudan, Yemen, other actions around the Central America, Central Asia. So that's been the fundamental theory. Now, when you throw in also election operations, being able to drive a red Ferrari at 3:45 a.m., it's going to be the same people. And I know how hard that is for people to believe that the same people who would do very overt or covert actions, but that end up killing people, would also be the same people who would do the soft operations for throwing elections. So we look at the people who did that in 2016. That was Warren Flood. That was Peter Strzok. Trump should lose 100 million to 0. And that's who we're looking at again. If you knocked over a country, you tried to knock over the United States in 2016, you're the first suspect in 2020. If you just happen to be driving a red Ferrari at 3:45 a.m. in Detroit, working for the same shell front company, Microsoft, you're the first suspect. You're the first suspect in 2020. So there's my opening statement.
Well said, George. And I just want to get to this picture we got. I'm of course not going to reveal the source on this, but it's Belt and Road, people. Belt and Road. So that's roads and the waterways is the, I think, illusion there. But let's go to this picture I got. I want to thank the person who sent it in. Possible red Ferrari. And this was cited in Michigan. I'm not going to say where exactly, unless I'm advised to do so by Jorge here. But this looks like a plate number. So let me just zoom in here. There it is. But it looks like some sort of red sports car with a tarp on it. It showed up at this particular person's are nearby their living quarters, and looks like an excuse me on that, people, a little glitchy on the mouse here. There we go. It seems to have been like at the apartment complex across the street. So this is something I wanted to share. Our tip line, as we said, it is open NN hour at pm.me. pm.me. So that's NNHOUR at pm.me if people want to send tips in. We also got another one here. I actually think that he left his number. I think Aaron wrote his number down because he may have called twice. But this is out of Sterling Heights, Macomb Township at midnight. 45,000 ballots were delivered. At 1 a.m., a medical emergency happened such that the poll workers all were ordered to go home for the night. So two bits there, and I do have some more photos and videos that we can get into as we go on from Philadelphia. I don't know what do you think about those, George? How do we verify these insofar as what do you use to measure these sorts of tips, and what do you think of them?
Well, my first reaction would be this person would know where the Ferrari Club is in Auburn Hills. Let's say they live in Auburn Hills or near wherever the major sports stadiums are. I doubt very seriously someone would keep a Ferrari outside in the Michigan weather. That I find that very difficult to believe. The first thing I would do is run the tires to see if those are the original make tires for a Ferrari. It doesn't make any sense to me that a Ferrari would be outside. But maybe,
red herring, maybe.
Yeah, I think this is one of those things that would say, reminds me so much of Steve Bannon. It's like, hey, these guys are hot on the trail. Why don't you take over some kind of red car? Why don't you put it in a tarp? Why don't you leave the license plate available? Why don't you send it in as a tip? So I would immediately start looking right where Dave Underdown told us to start looking. And this is before the election. He said the Ferrari Club, Birmingham, Michigan, or Bloomfield Hills. I can't remember which it was. And he said it was the Illich, which was giving red Ferraris to all the Red Wings. And the one that really stood out was the Walgreens Ferrari. I can't remember the guy's name, but his daughter had $100,000 upgrade in just the upholstery from the Vatican Bank. Now, I don't know about you, but the Vatican Bank hasn't given me $100,000 for any upholstery upgrades. I don't even have $100,000. I don't even have a car. So to me, immediately I look at Walgreens and I say, oh, Mark Rich and now Kolomoisky inherited it from Mark Rich, this 50% interest in Walgreens from this Boots Alliance, this Walgreens Boots Alliance. Remember, if I drive the Ferrari down there with 138,000, all Joe Biden ballots, I'm committing a felony that's going to put me away for 20 years. So I have to have in my head a return either through, like Peter Strzok said in the opening piece, the mice, it's either got to be through ego, or it's got to be through coercion, or it's got to be through ideology. The mice motives, and when I go through the mice motives, the only thing I can think of is coercion. The only thing I can think of is, hey, Warren, Strzok talking to Warren Flood, if you lose this, it's not going to be good for your family's health, right? You either get that Ferrari down there, or that's it. We're pulling the plug on your family. It had to be some kind of Ken Hale type threat. I can't imagine somebody risking going to prison for 30 years or 20 years, and not only risking their Ferrari, but they're risking their freedom.
So we got to be looking for somebody who's going to be benefiting to the tune of a couple $billion. And of course, Walgreens with Boots Alliance, Alliance Boots, however you want to say it, is looking for getting trillions. Dan Gilbert's looking to get trillions. Illich from the Red Wings is looking to get trillions. You can see all these swing states are now declaring increased COVID, more lockdown. Maryland just announced more lockdown. You don't get the money. You're not going to get Nancy Pelosi's $5 trillion early February unless you have lockdown. And all these states up in the Midwest are going to get locked down. So that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for somebody who benefits at least $1 billion. And so I just can't imagine a billionaire storing their Ferrari outside in a carport, not even a garage. But this guy would know, I think this guy would know where the real Ferrari owners are.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think that's a good way to put it. I mean, you know, when you do get red herrings, when you work in public intelligence, I guess, George, that's the lesson there.
The beautiful story here is Bannon, when he does this kind of stuff, points you in the right direction. This to me says, okay, they wouldn't be throwing out red herrings if we weren't on the right trail. If we were going down the wrong track, they wouldn't be throwing out red herrings. So in a way, this is very positive metadata that Bannon or someone like a Bannon would be doing this.
And I wanted to share this too. This is out of Philadelphia. Several pictures here. We actually got the plate on this one too. There's a different situation here. A white van and a group of what appeared to be some organized T-shirt sellers. Let me see if I can zoom in on this. It must be this one here. So the white van, and they were selling T-shirts the morning after the election, quite early in Philadelphia. And there's the, hopefully we're zooming in on there. Is that zoomed in? Let me pull it back out. Yeah, it is. Okay. 1She34. And they were selling T-shirts that said "Count all votes" immediately right after the election on the 4th. I believe he said it was about 10 a.m. Again, this is in Philadelphia, and I do have a video of that which I can bring up as well. But there's the license plate there. Just seems, you know, obviously nothing smoking gun of a sort, but circumstantial evidence of organized and pre-science together combined to protest any sort of stopping of vote counting, it seems.
So before we get to that one, I'm going to just read you a couple of comments that have come in about the Ferrari. Here, Cynthia Jampel says she worked for Ferrari for 10 years. And it looks too high for a Ferrari and also not very wide. A Ferrari has a wider thing. And then she asked you to enlarge the plate. Yeah, there you go. Put her comment up there. And then also Biden campaign and BLM got new Jeeps. So maybe the fact that they're showing us white vans is to throw us away from looking at Jeeps. Yeah, 128112. Yeah, it just looks like, don't forget the F is for family. Yeah, we could have family involved here. That's true. Could be somebody struck. The older struck could have had many wives, and that is always, you know, Lisa Page. We always talk about her as potential daughter of Peter Strzok Sr. Doesn't look like a Ferrari.
What? Are you serious, George?
Yes, I'm totally serious. They're not married.
Oh my goodness! Wouldn't that make them partaking in incestual relations?
Oh, they're not together. I mean, come on.
Oh, that's part of the play.
Right. That just means they can't testify against each other. They get marriage immunity, but
right. That's it. The same thing in the United Kingdom as well. You can't conspire with a spouse,
right.
For whatever reason.
Well, anything. If it was, you know, if somebody was a masseuse and you got immunity for a masseuse, they'd be each other's masseuse. Let's see. Ferrari runs the LEU uranium bank that Warren Buffett invested in. Dave says that. I want to research that. I'm not sure Ferrari. I know that there's an organized crime background in Ferrari. I know the Vatican Bank obviously had the drug running, drug laundry, all that after World War II with the Hellawell plan. And I do know that they've had a long history with the Swiss companies because there's no extradition in Switzerland. And Mark Rich was in Switzerland, in Zug, in Switzerland. Is that a Chrysler 300? She asks, because I guess it was a Chrysler 300. Borat supposedly in Kazakhstan made a comment about Ferrari owning the uranium bank, I guess. I don't know if that's true or not. We'll have to check that. I don't think that's true. But we could look and see if Ferrari has an interest in the uranium bank. That would explain why Hunter Biden was there buying shares in the uranium bank for Warren Buffett. And Ann Vandersteel got her channel nuked. Yes, I saw that. That was very sad.
We should get Ann back on, George.
Yeah, we should. Everyone's saying that's not a Ferrari. So it could be a Maserati bi-turbo, Cynthia says. And then here's a person complimenting me and wanting me to promote my Patreon. Okay, it's George Webb, Georg W.
We can do a short commercial break here, folks.
Yeah, the person.
And we're back.
We're back.
Commercial plug for Patreon of George Webb.
Well, I decided that, there was that, every time you hit Gretzky, in the game, every time they sent a goon in to hit Gretzky, you'd get McSorley. McSorley would come out and punch you out, right? And I just decided, it was the enforcer, yeah. I just decided every time a nasty comment, that immediately means we go to a Patreon promo. So
yeah.
It's like, okay, you punch McSorley or you punch Gretzky, you're going to get McSorley.
That'll weed those out pretty quick, I think, with our moderators here.
So, so the consensus I'm getting is that is not a Ferrari. But the beautiful thing here is here's Bannon trying to lead us down that direction, which I love. So I would say with what Dave has said, the Ferrari girl. Let me see who it is that is in the Ferrari girl, the Vatican Bank girl. Let me just look this up really quick.
Sure. Yeah. I can bring up the Philly pictures as well. So if people want to bear with me on that. Again, they were selling T-shirts. Actually, I'll play the video that we got from Philadelphia as George pulls that up. Entropy chat is in the link is in the live chat, folks. If people want to support that way.
People don't believe that there actually is a Walgreens Boots Alliance. So you may want to actually just bring up Walgreens Boots Alliance.
Sure. Yeah.
And the I want to say it's Nassari is the guy in who owns it. It's not Wasson. It's this guy named Nassari, the Ferrari guy.
Okay, I will do that, and then I'm gonna share this in the meanwhile. Again, this is from Philly.
Pacina. Okay, go ahead.
So pretty short clip there, but morning after setting up sound speakers, getting ready for that protest, and selling T-shirts saying "Count all votes." So shout out to our man in Philly for sharing that with us. And let me just bring up Walgreens Alliance. Is that correct, George?
Boots Alliance. Yeah, Boots
Okay.
Alliance. Just to establish the fact that it does exist. And
Okay, bear with me here, folks. Pulling it up as we speak. Okay, there she is. American holding company, headquartered in Deerfield, Illinois, that owns Walgreens, Boots, and a number of pharmaceutical manufacturing, wholesale, and distribution companies. Boots UK Limited is a British health and beauty retailer and pharmacy, for those that don't know. So there it is. Revenue 139 billion in excess.
I think you're going to find the corporate directors are actually in Switzerland, but
Stefano Pessina
yes,
is the CEO.
yeah, Stefano Pessina and
Jim Skinner, executive chairman.
and I think it's Pessina's daughter that has the Ferrari with the hand woven $100,000 leather upgrade. Maybe I'm wrong.
His daughter
Where's Dave?
has,
Related
Yeah,
to
let me-
related to Victor Boot. Yeah, hello everyone. Greetings from Toronto. Yes. So this is
is Boots Alliance near the Baha'i Center in Illinois. Do you know what the Baha'i Center is, George?
yeah, a lot of people have said Strzok was Baha'i. Therefore, well, let me see if I get this right. And Harry the Greek is calling me, but I can't talk to you right now, brother.
Shout out to Harry the Greek, brassballs.blog.
So I've heard a lot of different things, but the Baha'i area of Israel and the Baha'i Jews, and Aaron Adler's the guy to ask about this. But there was supposedly, it's like the chosen ones that weren't a part of one of the supposedly chosen tribes. I want to say the tribe of David, but I could be wrong. Out of the 12 tribes, could be the tribe of Dan, could be one of the tribes, right? And then these are for the folks who have a right to be in the Holy Land, but they're not one of the tribes. And to hear Aaron talk about it is sort of like the people that come from the Pale, which would like maybe a Peter Strzok or someone like that, or people who came from the old highlands of Mesopotamia, the original chosen ones that somehow interface with Jesus. It doesn't matter what I think they are, it's what they think they are. And they have a place in the Holy Land, apparently, because of Mesopotamia and so forth. You want to read back on the Baha'i? Do you want to?
Yeah, give me a sec here. I'm free. I'm soloing it right now. It's kind of hard with this mouse here. So give me a sec. I lost my point. I'm just gonna make a new tab. Okay. Okay, I lost my tab here, George. So you gotta take over as I fix this.
I'll read you what it's Persia, and this goes back to Strzok again. He thinks he's one of these original people that walked the earth with Jesus and in Mesopotamia. But the Baha'i faith, Persian called Baha'i, is a new religion teaching the essential worth of all religions and the unity of all people. Initially grew in Persia and parts of the Middle East where they faced ongoing persecution. 5 million adherents. The central figures thought that God would soon send a prophet in the way of Jesus or Muhammad. And he was executed in 1850 by Iranian authorities. So again, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether you or I believe in the Baha'i faith, but if I am going to recruit religious zealots to where, if I'm Peter Strzok and I'm recruiting religious zealots to blow up embassies, etc., like let's say in all over Africa, all over, I have to have a recruiting base of some ideology, right? This is what Peter Strzok, you just heard him say, I need an ideology to recruit from. It could be money, but the strongest zealots, the one that will drive trucks full of C4 explosives for you, if you're Peter Strzok, right, are ideological zealots, right? If you're compromised and they say, oh, we'll kill your whole family, are you going to drive the truck of explosives, or are you going to drive the truck of explosives because your Baha'i leader is the true prophet and you're going to pave the way for, millions that will follow you, and you're going to die for your religion, you're going to die for your faith? Strzok's telling you right there in the mice that most of his father's recruiting in the tribes and most of his recruiting is probably something like the Baha'i faith. Remember, they recruit across, Peter Strzok recruits across all different tribes in all different countries. So he's recruiting in Tajikistan and Kazakhstan and all these different stands, right? 5 or 6 different tribes. You would think, speaking Persian and so forth in the dialect, that it would be some ideology that cut across all the stands. And it would be an extreme ideology. And if you start looking at the money that the Baha'is have, and the money that they've established in their temples and so forth in the United States, you start pulling that thread with Ferrari and other people, and the oil plays that the Strzoks have been doing for 40 years in the Middle East, maybe there's a thread there to be pulled. Aaron certainly thought so. Aaron Adler certainly thought so. I'm not so sure yet because I just don't know enough about the Baha'i faith.
Yeah, so we're just trying to tie that to Walgreens there because of the Ferrari link. For those just joining us, we're live this high noon with George Webb. I was listening to Major Prater yesterday, George, and he said it seems like we're losing. What do you think?
Because we're not thinking hard enough. If you think like the guy in the corner that you have there with Da Vinci, you always win. When you stop thinking and you start feeling, you're going to lose. Keep thinking, you win, right? And God knows you're way smarter than me, and we got a lot of people out there that are way smarter.
I don't know about that, George.
Okay, so let's just go back to Mount Carmel, right? Which is not near Tel Aviv. It's near Haifa, I believe. Okay, I think Aaron said Haifa, right? And so this is a little carve out. This would be a way for you as a Persian descendant, okay, if the Strzoks think they're descendants of Mesopotamia, this would be a way of recruiting people in an alliance with the Israelis, with Mossad, and have a little carve out. And then your thoughts immediately then go, there's only one person who could possibly be in that intersection, and that's Nadim El-Shami. And everybody says, oh, Nadim El-Shami. Everyone knows Nadim El-Shami is the chief of staff for Nancy Pelosi for 10 years, and he's involved in this Dominion voting system. And everyone knows he's worked for Peter Strzok. So again, just with simple compass work and simple Venn diagram, your thoughts immediately go to Nadim El-Shami if Nadim El-Shami is Baha'i, I want to know where Nadim El-Shami was at 3:45 a.m. So what I'm saying is you go for the person first with the intersection of what you know about Strzok and what you know about Warren Flood, what you know about Nancy Pelosi, who would have the motivation, et cetera, ideology to throw the election. And then just ask yourself the question, do they own a red Ferrari, and where were they at 3:45 a.m.? Something was on there about Strzok's mother, and I missed that. And
oh yeah, let me see. Scrolling up, George Strzok's mother. I lost the comment. Oh, Mormon. She was Mormon from the mobster fool. She was born in a Mormon family. Peter Strzok's mother was.
The Mormons sometimes, though, will adopt. We saw this in the case of, well, just knowing what I know, the Mormons will adopt young girls, and then if in these very fundamentalist kind of girl farms, one husband and 28 14-year-old wives. So we don't know if Strzok's mother comes from that type of situation or not, but I just, when somebody says he's Mormon, I don't want to have that put us into a box. Okay, it could be just somebody who was raising the kid, because if you look at Strzok's mother's brother, that's where we get into the guy who's the ambassador to Korea, Harry Harris. Now, that's the same guy who's making the deal for all the masks. And he seems to be running a weapons program called coronavirus in South Korea and Singapore. So the Strzok family is in this thing. We have to find that thread. What is the ideology? It comes right out of Strzok's mouth. That could be one of the reasons that motivates these ideologues. And I think he's heavy on the idea. And then another person mentioned family. So ask Aaron about Strzok being Baha'i. Yes, Marty Farrell says, yes, I agree with that.
Comment here from Charles. I've got a Delta 88 from 1982 for George. Blues Mobile donation.
Yeah, I don't want a car. They blow up. I'm from Cleveland, right? I'm from Cleveland. I know what the mobs does in Cleveland with cars. I don't need a car. I don't want to have that ignition turning experience.
Kolomoiskyville.
Well, see, this is the other thing. It's like my first experience, right, was going to Piketon, saying, hey, they're doing some kind of operations here because supposedly this thing has been shut down, these nuclear reactors, but everything's closed here and there's nobody working on shutting anything down at all. It seems like they're fracking here and sending it down to a ship in the Ohio River, and it's called the Buckeye Express Pipeline. This goes back 3.5 years. This is when I originally had the thought that they were using these small package reactors for fracking. I even stopped at a animal safari park before I got to Piketon and said that these safari parks are just covers for fracking operations. The animals can't complain about rumbling at night. So when you drain a whole state and you have state actors that you're supporting for governor and attorney general like DeWine, right? Kolomoisky, if that's your guy that's doing the fracking, aren't you going to spend the money in the same state? If you're going to buy commercial real estate to launder the money, aren't you going to spend it in the same state where you stole the oil? That would support your governor, your attorney general. And that's exactly what Kolomoisky did. Kolomoisky took the takings, and I've published the 5 or 6 different pipelines Marathon Oil has built in Ohio. He's taken what he's stolen, and he's invested it back in Cleveland, right? I think Dan Gilbert is also doing the same thing in the Toledo area with the pipeline up to Detroit, or downriver, a little bit downriver from Detroit, where we saw those refineries and so forth.
Yeah.
They're gonna have to invest the money back in the same place. That way the money doesn't move and doesn't go into bank accounts and can't be traced by the FBI and FinCEN. Everyone says you're casting aspersions on Kolomoisky. You're casting aspersions on him, saying he's doing money laundering. The FBI raided Kolomoisky. I didn't raid Kolomoisky. The FBI raided Kolomoisky. And
They raided their landlord.
And what did they say? What did they say the case was by their code? Their code system, not mine. Money laundering. You know,
Yeah.
DeWine is in on it. You know,
I
DeWine.
was so surprised when I found out from Harry the Greek that the FBI paid millions of dollars in rent to a Ukrainian overlord. That was quite interesting. So they raided their own landlord.
Right. I mean, the FBI did a sham raid, a slap and seal raid, but you know, DeWine knew all about the drug operation in Piketon. He later, 2 years later, after his own election, said, well, there was an undercurrent of drugs. I wasn't wrong that there was a huge drug operation in Piketon. DeWine said so after he was elected governor. After he was elected governor, he admitted to the huge drug operation there. Remember, eight people are murdered in this thing. So not to get too far off of the subject of the election, but it's going to be the same people that commit these crimes that are from Ukraine, that are throwing these elections, that are bringing these people into Washington, D.C., into the Library of Congress. It's going to be these same people. That's why we set up shop in Michigan. It's going to be the same people that are trying to throw the election in Michigan and Ohio, right?
Yeah.
Florida, and all the other places wherever they're stealing energy. Here, Kevin Timmer's talking about the Safari Park that used to be an old strip mine, an old coal mining strip mine.
Yeah. And I was just reading about, you just mentioned energy and pipelines. Buffett, which I'm sure you already know, George, bought up, I think it was Dominion Energy in July, the first week of July of this year, called Dominion Energy out of Virginia, Richmond, Virginia, I believe it is.
Who bought Dominion Energy?
That was Buffett. That was Warren Buffett I think it was the first week of July of this year.
Yeah. And yes, somebody said El Shami, Nadeem El Shami. Yes, that's who I'm talking about, Nadeem El Shami. Well,
Nadeem
there you go.
Who's that, George?
That's the guy who was on Dominion, the Dominion voting system. I also thought he was Baha'i. Is
there a connection? That actually came to me too. Was Dominion, the energy, and then the software, the voting system? Well,
I mean, it is a way of laundering your money. You can buy voting consulting. Warren Buffett's, I'm sorry if we're going a little bit tangential today. We're just trying to limit down the number of Ferraris we have to look at. And we're thinking, let's do all the Baha'i. What we're trying to do is figure out, we're starting with red Ferraris. Okay. Then we're starting with red Ferraris that could have been there at 3:45 a.m. Then we're taking people who would have motive to drive the red Ferrari at 3:45 a.m. Then we're taking people who've done overthrows of elections. Okay, we're putting them all on the whiteboard. Okay, they don't necessarily intersect. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to take the compass and draw circles around them to see if they do intersect. Okay, we're taking what Peter Strzok said about ideology as your key motivator. How do you get somebody to drive their Ferrari down there at 3:45 a.m.? Peter Strzok says one is money. I can offer the guy money. The second thing is I can go with somebody who has an ideology. The third is I can go coerce someone to drive down there. That's an option. And then 4 is ego. And then 5 is family. is Warren Buffett also a cousin of Strzok? You know, I mean, that's a little bit much for me. I knew Warren Flood. I mean, the same people who do war and flood are also flooding the elections with fake ballots, right? That's the fundamental theorem here. The same people that do the war, Iraq and Iran, and Iraq war, Iran overthrow, Afghanistan war, are the same people who do the floods in Pakistan, USAID floods, are the same people who flood the election at 3:45 a.m., right? That's what we're
Do you
saying.
think he's just a total cutout, and then his name was picked to, I don't know, make fun, or I don't even know. Be kind of arrogant to do that, wouldn't it? Just have a cutout be named like War and Peace or War and Blood.
Yeah, well, I know he's studied at all these high-end mineralogy institutes and stuff, and he's kind of a genius as far as mineralogy. And he was kind of brought up through the CSIS. Yeah, he was brought up through the CSIS ranks. He was the chief technology advisor for Joe Biden, going back 10 years. He's a smart guy, smart kid. So, you know, he has a Canadian intel background. So we don't know if that's his real name or not. It could be the Flood family is just, you know, just happens to got together with a war family and they decided to create the War and Flood family. But I always thought it was a fake name. Yeah, I agree with you. I always thought it was a fake name. But we're just kind of spitballing it a little bit here.
Yeah, definitely.
So Pete Ross is saying Google, Ferrari, and Dominion Energy.
Ferrari and Dominion. I wish I could copy and paste here.
Let me try it over here.
Okay. And still planning on going up to Detroit this week. We were going to go, I think it was the day before yesterday, but I'm going to touch base with Detroit Dave Underdown to get some more boots on the ground over there. An excursion this week. The Stop the Steal movement, in somewhat related news, is marching on Washington, D.C. in a few days as well, for the people in the DMV who may want to join. And we also want to appreciate the people who called in and left voicemails here at the News Hour. We got back to yesterday, so just, you know, getting better at doing everything over here. So just want to thank everybody for tuning in and for the support as we try to figure out who's doing this sting.
This is, you know, we saw the chessboard of you and me playing chess, right? I mean, we do have to kind of vocalize our thoughts here. Not everything's going to be a winner, but Dominion Energy does have this history with Terry McAuliffe. And Terry McAuliffe is the governor of Virginia. He's the guy who gave Andy McCabe's wife the $675,000 to run for a state seat. He's the guy with the green energy car company with China. He's the guy who wanted to give Dominion Energy, Warren Buffett, $13 billion. So anytime you include Terry McAuliffe in the DNC, you're in the right neighborhood. You're in the right neighborhood.
Let me pull him up. There is a picture of him with two other dudes. Oh, wow. Former entrepreneur, 72nd governor of Virginia, DNC chair for 4 years during the neocon reign of the early 2000s, and co-chair of Clinton's 96 re-election campaign. Very highly associated with the upper brass of the DNC is Terry McAuliffe. So he's got the state, and he's also got the business background. And business and state, as we know, are usually quite a witch's brew. Which
very close friend of Bill Clinton's. Very close friend of Bill Clinton's for 30 years. So here Cindy comes up with Mike Barmer, Barmer. This is what I like about these compound searches, that We've got Mike Barner, who does transmission operations planning at Dominion Energy, and just so happens to be a member of the Ferrari Owners and Enthusiasts Club. So in North Carolina. So Dominion, let me go through what I know about energy thievery with Rahm Emanuel and the DNC. There was a gas line. I published it across Ohio, and I think the blue one that I published is the gas line, and then the red one is the oil. But basically, the idea is you get this to water, and then you can sell it somewhere, okay? Or just get it into a consortium, and you can sell it. You can hide. It's fungible, is what I'm saying. Once you get gas into a pipeline, nobody can say, oh, I can tell by looking at those molecules that they were stolen from Piketon, Ohio. You see what I mean? Once I get the gas into a feeder line, this is the Seth Rich story, right? Once I get the gas into a marathon feeder line, a marathon's 26 miles or less gas line, and I get into a feeder line, into a backbone line, you can't tell where it came from. Now, when it gets to the other end, I can sell it. Remember where I published a new video of me standing in front of the refineries in Toledo. Once I'm Dan Gilbert and I get it there, I can sell it to industry. The most efficient form of energy to run boilers and stuff like that, anytime you're heating anything up in any kind of industrial process, is with natural gas. Okay, that's why it's used in homes a lot. Because it's more efficient than electricity, right? So you have to look for somebody who is kind of like transmitting energy. Okay, you can transmit energy through high wires, or you can transmit energy through gas pipelines. But again, not that many people I know have gas pipelines. There's a small set, right? And if the guy has a Ferrari, I want to ask him, hey, tell me about the Ferrari Owners and Enthusiasts Club at Dominion Energy. How many other people here working for Warren Buffett have Ferraris? Because Warren Buffett, by Peter Strzok's own words, has the most motive because he's going to make the most money, right, from a deal if Biden is the president of the United States. Belt and Road right now, that's a $20 trillion deal. Warren Buffett's $20 trillion deal is on the chopping block if Trump remains president. That's 20 trillion reasons why he doesn't want Donald Trump.
Yeah. And that was actually something the article, well, not as specifically, but it said that they think that Buffett was expecting a blue win, basically a DNC win with his purchase in July of that pipeline. But that's, outside of that deal that you just mentioned.
All that got garbled and went really fast. Aaron has got to upgrade I realize we need money, but Aaron has to upgrade the Wi-Fi. But I will tell you this in the meantime, there is a Ferrari Energy. These Knights of Malta might have a company called Ferrari Energy.
I was just going to say the article that I read that I can't remember who it was from. It was listing Buffett as purchasing that pipeline or that energy in Dominion Energy at the beginning of July. Basically said that it seems that Buffett was banking on a blue win, a DNC win, which is a more general statement of what you said with regards to the deal being on the chopping block. But that's the Dominion Energy. That's outside the previous deal with Strzok that you mentioned.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm looking here and saying, is the red the most common color Ferrari? Yeah. Yeah. And David Icke says, follow the money. Well, there's a real pointer. Yeah, thanks, Dave.
Shout out to my subscriber Kelly, though. She is awesome, Canadian. We love our Canadians.
Terry McAuliffe was also part of friendshipping with Wan Y. Lang, a Chinese American who donated to the DNC in 2016. He owns ports, and he was a Huawei executive. Huawei, this is wild tangent, who always has great stuff. Huawei was the primary tech money laundery for the Belt and Road. So this is looking like Belt and Road. As a matter of fact, now these are our far reaches, you know, when you're just spitballing and brainstorming, right? When you're putting things on a whiteboard with the Miami University pins and yarn. But when you said where in the world is George Webb the other day, Addie?
Yeah.
You made me immediately think of a new game. I thought of Dave Underdown and a new game, which is where in the world is Warren Buffett on the Belton Road? And I thought, what a great way to learn where Warren Buffett is. And it'll be just a game. It'll just be a game, all the stops that you can make along the way in the Belton Road. In Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, all of these places are struck by strongholds, right? So somebody's agreeing with Dave Underdown, but I don't know what they're agreeing to.
Well, Dave, I'm calling you later today, brother. When we gotta get some more. We're doing another operation in the field.
Dave needs to call in right now and tell me who is the gal from Walgreens that ordered the $100,000 upholstery upgrade to their Ferrari. That's what I need to know, because that's the first place I'm looking. Again, that person might not know. I see Marty Farrell is asking, who is Christopher Krebs? Krebs is, I think it's Krebe, runs a U.S. agency called CISA, which is supposedly the Central Infrastructure Security Agency, something along that line, that was supposed to be looking at election irregularities. But I'm just, if you have to have some, excuse me for the wacky camera, you have to have some points of control to your thinking, right? You want to be as wild and open blue sky as possible, but you have to have a few points of control for your thinking.
Constraints.
Correct. Like I call them points of control. Some people say degrees of freedom, but one of the points that you have to have is Peter Strzok. Okay. Adam Ferrari is an accomplished petroleum engineer and founder of the private oil and gas company Ferrari Energy. Yes. Another one of the constraints here is it's got to be Hunter Biden, right?
Yeah.
So, and it's got to be somebody who's Hunter Biden's fronting for. So it's got to be Belt and Road connected. It's got to be Buffett, or somehow connected with Buffett and energy, right? Or Kolomoisky and energy in Ohio. Okay, so it's got to be somebody who gains tremendously. It's got to be like a Dan Gilbert or Illich. So there's not that many billionaires in the area we're talking about. We got Kolomoisky, we got Gilbert, we got Illich, we got Ferrari, we got a couple, maybe 10. But it can't be somebody who just owns a Ferrari. That's not good enough. It's not good enough to come down you know what I mean? It has to be connected with the billionaire. We have to put the billionaire together with the Ferrari. And it would be helpful to connect this to the 2016 election as a point of constraint as well. So that's why I think of Warren Flood, and I think of minerals, and I think of Frank Giustra when I think of Warren Flood, and I think of uranium when I think of Warren Flood. I think of Frank Giustra Partners. I think of all the Libya, Syria, Sudan, Yemen, all these topples to get uranium or oil. Congo. I think of Glencore. I think of Mark Rich. I think of pipelines. You know, who's got the money, to do this?
Pistons owner, someone said.
The owner of the Pistons, I think, is the owner of the Pistons is Illich. I think Illich owns the Red Wings and the Pistons. Last time I looked, I might be wrong.
He owns the Pistons too. Let me see. Let me check on that. Where was Struck educated, George?
Well, he's from Sault Ste. Marie. He was born in Sault Ste. Marie, and that was the #1 place where the floods would flood in. The intelligence operatives in the 2016 came in through Sault Ste. Marie, through Paul Wellen.
Goodness.
He was flying up there. I produced pictures of him flying up to Sault Ste. Marie. It said, so many miles to Sault Ste. Marie. Wellen was the contact with Peter Strzok. Okay, so if you remember Wellen, I went over there with Dave Underdown. The girls came in, Krylova and Bogacheva came into Novi, Michigan, over there by Ann Arbor. If you're going to have somebody in, now who is this? Tom Boris.
Okay, so this is the owner of the Pistons, and he was born in Nazareth. Someone just told me a joke, guys. Born in Israel, Michigan State, billionaire. He's got 2 brothers. He owns Platinum Equity, which is a private equity firm in Beverly Hills, California. So another possible subject is or suspect as far as I'm concerned, but just maybe not as tied as the Illiches are. But you think it really comes back to the Belt and Road and Trump maybe wanting to put a stop to the expansionist economic philosophy and foreign policy of China?
Yeah, it's the people who could put that Ferrari down there at 3:40 a.m. with 138,000 Biden votes. It's going to be the Belt and Road guys. It's going to be the Hunter Biden guys. It's going to be the encrypted BlackBerry guys, right? I mean, it might not be, but it would make so much sense if it was. Would fit everything else that we've talked about, right? I mean, the BlackBerries did turn out to be the key to the Belt and Road. Now everybody looks at it and goes, "Oh, wow, that's mind blowing." It's now everything fits together. Now we have to take it to the next level. Now knowing what we know about Belt and Road and the BlackBerries, who used them to steal energy? Who used them in Ohio to steal energy? Okay, Hunter Biden's partner, right? Who used them in between Iran and China to steal energy? Those are going to be the people motivated to keep Trump out of office.
Why do you think Trump hasn't been assassinated, George?
I think it looks bad. The Kennedy thing, it launches 1,000 books, maybe 10,000 books written on the Kennedy assassination, and builds a huge distrust. I think Andy Craig told me there was more than 10,000 books written on the Kennedy assassination.
I believe it, yeah.
Because you don't go, it's a conspiracy that Kennedy was shot. No, I'm pretty sure everybody saw the Zapruder film. I'm pretty sure he was shot. So then the only thing you can go to then is now to Oswald, and then he's PB Floor is his agent name. It's like immediately he's an intelligence agent with a 7-year-long CIA record, right? That doesn't look good. That points directly back to us here at the CIA. It would have been better if the coronavirus thing would have worked. It got his brother, got Robert, just didn't get Trump. Trump, I think, had the hydroxychloroquine going on the sly, and it just didn't get him. I think it almost got him, but he pulled out.
So you think Trump's brother's death was not an accident, not a coincidence?
Awfully strange timing right before the election, right? And his brother turned out to be the key informant on all the folks that Strux had worked with for 40 years, gun running 40 years with Iran-Contra. Peter Strux Sr. involved in Iran-Contra. Just so happens all the key informant, Robert Trump, the key informant of all of Iran-Contra and everything after, went all the way back to the original Khashoggi, right? That guy just so happens to die a month before the election when they're threatening Trump. I don't know, maybe not, but just odd timing.
Yeah, certainly is. Could have been a message sent, as well as a key asset to Trump's team taken out at the same time.
Yeah, so this is why I look at and here Dominion Energy is proposing a huge solar farm, and solar farms, we all heard of Solyndra, right? Those are just money laundering operations, right?
Solyndra was a solar farm.
$300 million, Department of Energy, right down the tubes, right?
Wow. Solindra. Solyndra. Oh, Solyndra with a Y. Solyndra scandal. Former type startup company. Manufacturer of cylindrical panels of copper, indium, gallium, selenide, thin film solar cells based in Fremont, California. Although company was once touted for its unusual technology, plummeting silicon prices led to the companies being unable to compete with conventional solar panels made of crystalline silicon. It filed for bankruptcy on the 1st of September 2011. Owner George Kaiser family, American billionaire, businessman, chairman of BOK Financial in Tulsa, Oklahoma. But it was associated with the U.S. Government, you said, George? Department of Energy?
Department of Energy gave him $300 million. Joe Kennedy, Robert Kennedy Jr. was involved in that song and dance.
And it was just a laundering wash?
Yeah, I think it went for bribes for the officials of the state of California to get the naval petroleum reserve bribes to drain that. But Anthony Ferrari has ties to the Gambino crime family and convicted murderer in Broward County. His business partner was Jack Abramoff. Now we're talking.
Mr. Abramoff. Oh, wait, who was Abramoff's business partner there, George?
Adam Kidon, Kidan. And Anthony Ferrari was convicted has ties to the Gambino crime family, apparently. Adam Ferrari Energy was educated at the University of Illinois in Urbana, magna cum laude in chemical engineering.
Do you think it's spelled Kidon or Kidden or Kiden?
Kidan, yeah.
We should just call him Kidon. No, that would be too confusing, wouldn't it?
It would, but that could be a wink.
Yeah. God, these people. Major Prather said they're quite arrogant, and I would have to agree with them. They're just going to hold on to this grip they have over the world until the very last, until they're burning in Mustafar.
Cindy's talking about how KK&R did the financing for the buyout of Alliance Boots to take a controlling interest in Walgreens. Remember, once I own Walgreens, I own a commercial outlet for all my drugs, right? Every drug I want to pour through there, 21,000 stores, right? And KK&R is the guy who did it. KK&R, that's David Petraeus. That's Black Swan event David Petraeus doing it. Again, that's Kissinger. You say KK&R, you get Kissinger. That's Club K. So, 55% stake. Little Tony and Big Tony get presidential pardons. Yeah, I don't know about that. Maybe Big Tony Salerno is going to get a. So again, we're just looking at how many billionaires can tell someone, drive my Ferrari with dealer plates down there to the Cobo Arena. That's a closed precinct, and have them with enough chutzpah and gravitas to reopen the precinct and accept 138,000 votes that are all Joe Biden votes. And by the way, we need to get the lady who testified, and we need to get the guy who testified down to Neighborhood Newsroom, because right now the Guardian just wrote an article saying, oh, this is all hearsay. even though we published the pictures of the people saying it, you know, the eyewitness accounts. Oh, it's all hearsay. No, it isn't hearsay. We have the actual film of the people doing the testimonies. But we need to get them in so we can say, what's your name? I state your name, you know, do you solemnly swear, you know, tell the truth, etc., and take their depositions at the neighborhood newsroom. And we need like 5 or 6 witnesses to be there when they're doing their testimony.
Definitely, George. And do you think just anybody who's come forward as a whistleblower would fall under that?
There are only 6 billionaires in Ohio. I wonder how many there are in Michigan. That'd be an interesting question. How many? Just type how many billionaires are there in Michigan? It can't be that many.
Yeah, let's find this out.
Because if we could get whoever saw the actual Ferrari, that would help tremendously. Because they could say, well, it was this tall white guy that got out, or it was this short black guy that got out, or it was this woman and she said her name was Krylova, and it said her license plate was Oconus Lure, you know. I mean, anything like that would help us a little bit, direct us, rather than just, you know, people are saying, oh, you're smearing billionaires. I'm not smearing any billionaire. If you stole half of Ohio's energy and you're Kolomoisky and you're being investigated for money laundering, I guess I'm smearing you, but didn't you smear yourself first? You know, didn't you roll in it before, you know, we started looking at you?
Okay, so the one I'm on right now lists people born in Michigan, which actually includes Steve Ballmer, who went to Detroit Country Day, as Detroit Dave has mentioned. Andrew Beal, owner of Texas Bank, Beal Financial Corp. Stephen Ross, he was born in Detroit, attended Wayne State. He now lives in New York. So yeah, these are just Dan Gilbert. There we go. Quicken Loans, 6.7 billion as of the article being written, which I believe was 2019. He lives in Franklin. Kalamazoo-based medical equipment firm Stryker Corp. Rhonda Stryker, another billionaire. Kalamazoo is definitely Michigan.
There was a big deal. There was a big deal in 2008 when Chrysler got the bailout, and Steve Feinberg got $800 million, I think, for Chrysler, and it all went into buying like Fiat and war production for doing electric buses in Russia. Almost all the money, hardly any money, went to Chrysler. So yeah, I look back to these deals where Steve Feinberg, you know, who's Steve Feinberg going to sit down there and make sure Trump doesn't get elected, right? He's going to send Warren Flood. Everybody's going to know who Warren Flood is, right? So I just don't know. If some white guy shows up, if Ballmer shows up and says, hey, I'm with Microsoft, you know, is Ballmer going to drive his Ferrari down there? No, he's going to say, who do I have working for me, or used to have working for me at Microsoft, that I can have drive down there and get the votes in there? And that's going to be Warren Flood. Microsoft's a shell organization where all these Russian girls came in, right? So that's who supposedly hacked the last time. Remember, Microsoft is the one that figured out Xtunnel and Xagent, the two hacking tools, the two hacking pieces of code, within 5 minutes. Within 5 minutes, Microsoft Professional Services had figured it out, right? Because it came from them, right? So throw Ballmer's hat into the ring. As a billionaire who could have financed something like this. I still say it's Belt and Road. You know, I don't know why Dan Gilbert would be buying commercial warehouse space around the Toledo airport before Trump's going to be speaking there, unless they needed a storage container for stolen oil or stolen gas or something. Toledo's not that great a place. You've been there. It's not that great a place sitting over there by the. I had 2 nights over there by the oil refinery. I woke up the next morning with a headache both days. Not that great of a vacation spot.
No, about most of the buildings are empty now too with the pandemic, and yeah, it's really
Right
really
for
been hard hit.
right for getting a couple of trillion from Nancy Pelosi, right? And then I do a redevelopment. Exactly what happened in Detroit with Dan Gilbert and Illich. If you'd have went down there below 8 Mile 8 years ago when the bailout happened, it was a disaster wasteland. Look at it now. They've completely redone Michigan Avenue. They've redone everything. I think they're looking to do the same thing in Toledo and the same thing in Cleveland, all along the pipeline. And again, if you invest it locally and let me be a joint venture partner, remember, if I'm a joint venture partner in Ohio for the redevelopment of Toledo, I'm the guy in charge of oversight. I'm the guy in charge of oversight of all the deals happening in Ohio, right? The Attorney General works for me. Do you think the Attorney General who was put in place by DeWine is going to look into DeWine's dealings, his cut-ins, his slug that he gets into some deal, a real estate deal in Toledo? I don't think so, especially if the money's coming from the government. The trillion is going to be coming from the U.S. government. Biden's going to be writing the check from the U.S. government to Gilbert.
And how do you spell DeWine, George?
DWINE.
DeWine. Okay.
He's the governor of. He's the guy who covered up the drug operation with the rodents. They a murder down there. He's been involved with Kolomoisky as a joint venture partner at least 10 years. Because otherwise you wouldn't have covered it up. I was right. There was an industrial drug operation. DeWine, you can always tell by the limited hangout, right? He gave a very limited hangout. He finally, 2 years later, he said, well, it turns out there was undercurrent of drugs. But you can always tell when somebody's in for 5% and not in for 95%. They don't want to do a wholehearted bailout of their overlords, right? They want to go, well, there was a little undercurrent of drugs with the rodents. There was a little undercurrent of drugs. There wasn't an undercurrent of drugs. There was an industrial drug operation that they were running out of there. Why are all the Ukrainian students coming in to Piketon again if it's supposedly totally closed down? Why are all the Ukrainian students coming in the hundreds into Piketon? Again, if you actually go there, you'll find out that that's what's happening. Okay, is it to learn how to run a reactor to do fracking? Seems like it. So anyway, yeah, DeWine with Bush. Yeah, he was very close to Bush.
Wow. So we've been going about hour 20 here, George. Can we do a call-in show later? We had a little miscommunication last night, but maybe we could go again later this evening.
Yeah, why don't you hit on Connie Bevan just before we go? Because I don't feel like we've made much progress here other than put some stuff on. I feel like the Steve Bannon war room. We've just thrown a bunch of spaghetti against the wall.
Yeah, you get some of those days sometimes, though.
Yeah,
we're reaching out to people. I'm reaching out to one. I think her name is Catherine Graham, lawyer here, who's been talking to Fox News Detroit. So hopefully she gets back to us. But we do appreciate the tips, people. Again, NNHOUR and an hour at pm.me if people want to send in information.
Hit the 11. Connie posted the 11 billionaires from the Detroit News. Michigan's 11 billionaires. There it is.
Okay. I think let me. Oh, that was the same one I had up. So let me just pull it back over here. And it's 11 from. Oh wait, that's actually not the right one, is it? Let me see. List 4117. Let me see if I can. No, I can't. Okay, give me a second. I can copy it. I just have to go to the chat itself. So bear with me, people, and I can pull that up.
Somebody said, "Why would you be so suspicious and ostentatious with the red Ferrari?" But if the polls had closed, remember, polls had closed. It's 3 a.m, folks. Polls had closed. In order to get people to open back up, it would need to be, you need to go down there, somebody who was in a position of power at Cobo Arena, at the TCF Center, right? And the only way that could be is if it's somebody who's like an owner, right? If you're about ready to lock up the place, right? And let's say you're just a night watchman and everybody's gone home. And now here comes Illich, and he owns the place and he says, open up. What do? He's a billionaire owner of the place. So you open up, and then that's when the votes go in. If the outside doors are locked, you got a real problem. You got to start bashing in doors. You need somebody to open the doors. That's why I say it's got to be somebody who's got influence, right, at that arena.
Gores isn't listed. I don't know why that is. Oh, this is 2018. Okay, that's why. I was looking at the 2019 one, but the ones listed here, as we mentioned, Dan Gilbert, Hank and Doug Meyer, grocery chain based in Michigan. Richard DeVos, direct selling giant Amway as well. Rhonda Stryker, as we mentioned. And then there's Illich again, Marianne. And they own the Detroit Red Wings, the Detroit Tigers, as well as Little Caesars Pizza and the Motor City Casino, do the Illiches. And Penske, there's a pretty well-known name there. William Young, CEO of Plastic Pack, makes plastic containers. John Brown. Okay, so he works with Rhonda Stryker as well. Martha Ford, widow of the grandson of Henry Ford. And she inherited the Detroit Lions after her husband died in 2014. Don Foss, founder and former chairman of Subprime Autolender Credit Acceptance Corp.
Well, since we don't have a direct witness, which is where, if you remember yesterday, I was hoping that we could get closer to a direct witness and hopefully.
Oh, whoops.
Then we
lost you there for a second, George.
Yeah, I said because we don't have a direct witness today, we are speculating a lot and kind of boiling the ocean a lot. Let's go try to find that gal and then get a better description of who came out of the car. If it's a guy with a like caramel complexion and he's got frizzy hair and we can show him the picture of Warren Flood and she goes, oh, that's Warren Flood. A lot of our work here we don't need to do a lot of the work that we're doing. You know, it's just like, oh, it was Warren Flood. Okay, great. So Warren Flood, what were you doing there at 3:45 a.m.? But if the guy is a huge 6'7" guy that has red hair and looks like the defenseman for the Detroit Red Wings, that also is important, you know, because then it points in the direction of Illich. So that's where we need to go. Next, I think.
Keep trying. I'm going to keep trying to reach out to her. If anybody knows her, we post the video on the Neighborhood News Studio channel as well as my channel. So many of you have seen that.
You said you might have known her Facebook friend.
Yeah, I still haven't heard anything back. I'm going to keep reaching, though. I'm going to see if there, because it's been reposted several times, that video has.
Maybe somebody's calling in with the key piece of evidence that we need to break the case. Yeah, I see people talking about the security camera footage. Unfortunately, if it was Illich's building, the first thing I would do is confiscate all the security camera.
Yeah, it's gonna have to be relied on eyewitness accounts, I think. But false alarm there on the phone call. Still digging, trying to find this witness, this eyewitness. Another guy I want to talk to is the white guy who reported it as well. I think also from Michigan. So those are two people we're gonna focus on, and hopefully by the end of the week we can get in touch with them.
I've got his name and I've got his information. I've sent him an email, but he has not responded yet. And so we'll see what happens. We'll keep looking, folks. Today, sometimes you're just throwing spaghetti on the wall like Steve Bannon likes to do. But you know, at least it's telling you what we're thinking, and then you can see what the crowd is thinking as well. You know, you can see what the crowd is thinking, and hopefully we'll put our heads together here and figure out who drove that red Ferrari.
Yes, sir. Yeah, and if you could stick around afterwards, George, for a sec. I want to thank everybody for listening. And are we gonna do play it by ear for tonight, George?
No, I can do 9 o'clock after. I just don't want to step on McDuff.
After McDuff, okay. Yeah, so I'll probably check in on the McDuff chat and let people know that we're gonna go on for some call-ins later tonight, and we'll give you updates on what we did throughout today. So stay frosty, folks. This is George Webb and Addy Ads, High Noon with George Webb, and we will see you all tomorrow and this evening as well.